Hey everybody, it's your man James, Business One Trader, back again with some more video action for you. Today's another piece from a clipped live stream I did quite a while ago. This one I'm going to be talking about why it is that so many comic pros today are such insufferable political ideologues, and how that is affecting the work, and why some of this is happening, some of the reasoning behind all this. I thought it was probably one of the most intriguing ones I've done, because I really got into some aspects that I've never talked about anywhere else on any other streams. So I thought this was one that was definitely worth your time to check out. Got some video stuff from others in it, so it's definitely worth checking out, I think, and I hope you do. And I want to thank you all for joining me today, and say that if you like what you see here, to drop a like down there to help out the algorithms around here. Also, be sure to drop any comments you have. I always want to hear what the folks have to say, especially on topics like this. So I want to hear your thoughts on the matter. And please be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you don't miss any of the content I'm producing around here. And if you have subscribed, share out some links and bring in some new blood, because I always want to get those numbers up as much as I can. But I thank you again for joining me today. I hope you get something of value out of this, and I will be back again with some more stuff very soon. And until next time, take care. Everything is political. It's all political. There is no Oasis. There is no, despite their terms, use their term safe space, there is nowhere to go to get away from politics. Everything is political. It's all political. And this to me is at the heart of the problems in this industry, as well as many others, as well as society in general. And again, we're going to get more into it, but there it is right there. Everything is political.
Is meant by everything is political. To describe it in the leftist tongue, everything is wrapped up in systems of oppression. Everything can be examined critically and the bigotry sussed out. Everything impacts people in not just an everyday way, but a collective, society-wide one. And so, everything is political. While some of these examples are obviously stupid, streets are not hate black people, Karen. Like the neo-planist position, and unfortunately for the liberal position, the underlying ethic is once again true. Everything actually can be political. The coffee in your kitchen is simply a drink you buy at the store and then have when it suits you. But it's also where it came from. Was slave labor involved in its creation? Were those workers compensated fairly? Are there injustices that force those workers into that position? In the trade deal that went between two governments to get that coffee from that country to your kitchen, was part of the deal fucking over somewhere else? This is a political way of viewing coffee. So are correct. But what they're missing, again, is the public-private split. They're missing that liberal society allows people to have a private life. Here's a great Nestle is a shitty company. I try not to buy Nestle.
See, there we go. Here he is. Here he brings in what we see as what I call the great divide. What some people call the polarization in Western society today, the political polarization. This is what it is. Those who believe that the private life is a thing, and those who believe that the private life is just another facet of the political. This is the divide. This is where it all comes from. This is where the heart of the matter is. This is what everything that we have seen all boils down to in the end.
For that reason alone. But you know what? Drumstick ice cream cones are just really fucking good. And every once in a while, I'll pick one up from the store. I don't do it all the time. But I'm also not willing to rake myself over the coals over it, because everything is political. And I need to stick to my principles all the time, or I'm a raging hypocrite. Sticking to your principles is important. Don't get me wrong. But I also understand that everybody has a cheat meal once in a while. People can relax a bit if the stakes are low. Not everybody has to be turned on all the time. And expecting them to be is a bit ridiculous, isn't it? Where it counts, you should certainly stick to your principles. I'm never taking a Nestle sponsorship, for example. They can go fuck themselves. But the private life is a place where you don't have to be political, where you can recharge your batteries and chill for a little while. To the socialist, whose view is totalizing, whose ethic is neo-planist, and whose position is that everything is political. Do you think you'd live that private life in their world? Do you think you'd ever be able to just chill out? Because everything is political, suddenly when it's somebody else's politics on display, the socialists have no choice but to freak out. A German far-right group is trying to recruit kids with a video game. Death Stranding is queer-phobic and promotes rape culture. Studio Ghibli has failed to deal with Japanese imperialism in its bright, colorful escapist movie. 6 Days in Fallujah needs to be deplatformed and blocked because it normalizes and promotes the mass murder of Iraqis. Don't play This Land Is My Land because they don't have Native American representation on their development team. Most people's knee-jerk reactions to these freakouts is to laugh at them and say, well, I thought everything was political. Maybe they view these individuals as so joyless and obsessed with politics that the idea of media that doesn't explicitly address the political is worthless to them. And sure, for a lot of brain-dead progs marching in lockstep with the approved points of view, they probably do view it as shallowly as this. But that's not the ideological core of the ethic being presented here. If everything is political and their politics are...
Damn it.
The right care at the right times. Plus 20% off.
Nobody cares about your ads, YouTube.
Welcome back your smile today.
What if extraterrestrials are already here waiting for us to reach out?
Yeah, they're called progressives.
if everything is political and they're saving the world and creating the utopia, then every moment and every space must be turned towards their politics. Every moment where socialism isn't being discussed, every space where socialism isn't present, is a direct setback. And therefore, these people view a mandate to fix it. This is a totalizing worldview. By design, it leaves nothing out. No private life. No moment where you can disengage, be off for a while. Step away from the eternal struggle and just live life. Even though everything may be political, you can still have places and times where coffee might be political, but it doesn't mean that there's not a time and place where you just say, fuck it, and enjoy your cup of coffee on some pleasant spring morning with your partner. Movies might be political, but you can still...
See, and there it is. These people are so turned on with their politics. As he says, they're totalitarian about it. You know, they think that their politics matter so much that anything that does not reflect them, that is not coerced or corrupted or controlled by them, is a setback. It's something that is harmful. You know, it's like, imagine you think you have the right answer to something and you know it's the right answer, and yet people won't listen to you. You see that as a failure. I'm failing to get people to do the right thing. And that's how these creators are. This is why the work is the way it is. That's why they do the things in the books that they do. That's why they say what they say online to the readers that don't get with the program. It's all because they believe in this utopic ideal in their political ideology, and anything that does not subscribe to that, anything that is not connected to that, anything that does not, you know, is not constantly tuned in with that, is a problem, and it either has to be solved or destroyed.
Say not today and snuggle up on the couch with somebody and watch one for fun. Games might be political, but sometimes you just want to play them with your friends. To the socialist, this view is a waste of precious resources, precious time, precious space. But to the liberal, this is what makes life worth living. This divide between the liberal ethic and the socialist one is why you routinely see stuff like this happen. When Basecamp banned political speech at their work, regardless of political denomination, they lost 1/3 of their employees. One of those former employees said on Twitter, "We just ask that if you want to work here, you leave behind everything that makes you human at the door." These people actually believe their politics is what makes them human, and not those private anti-politic moments like drinking coffee with their spouse. Imagine the mindset you have to think like this. Imagine thinking that politics is what makes you human, rather than your humanity making you political. That mindset is best described by another common leftist phrase: the personal is political. This view
and here we come to the heart of it all that he's talking about. See, there it is the personal is political. See, there is no safe space, there is no oasis, there is nowhere to go that is not political with these types. And you know, this is the whole point of the whole thing. You know, this is the divide. This is where we all argue. You know, you and I, most likely most of you anyway who are watching this, you agree with me that, you know, yeah, politics has its place, but it's not everything. It's not everywhere, and certainly not in the personal. You know, when I'm trying to sit here and watch a movie or you know, play a video game or read a comic book or, you know, enjoy a meal, I'm not sitting there thinking about the political implications of that. I'm just sitting here and I'm just trying to have a good time. I'm trying to enjoy myself, because that's, as he said, what makes life worth living. And to these people, all of that is irrelevant, because we're not in utopia yet, the utopia that they believe we should have, and therefore anything that gets in the way of that has to be stopped. So your desire for a quote unquote normal life is in the way of utopia. And if you truly believe that that's the case, what wouldn't you do to people who were in the way of bringing about utopia?
Flies in the face of the liberal ethic on privacy. We can't accept that everything may have a political component, but also that there is a time and place to deal with those politics. Addressing the politics of coffee can be another time, not the morning coffee with your partner. The liberal respects the distinction between the public and the private, between the political and the personal. For this reason, it gives people the space to be people, rather than always on, always emoting polititrons. But just as importantly, it provides the moral foundations for the limits of state power. If we accept that we have a private, personal life away from political engagement, then it stands to reason that during the occurrence of a violent crime or something, that is a realm in which the state has no business butting in. For example, back during Canada's push to decriminalize homosexuality, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau said it best: "There is no place for the state in the bedrooms of the nation." That is an appeal to the personal, to the private life, existing outside of the state's purview. But if everything is political, then certainly the personal is political. And if the personal is political, then every personal act is also a political act. And if every act is a political act, then every act is the concern of the state, because the political is the concern of the state. If you've noticed it sounds like fascism, you'd be correct. Mussolini's most famous quote, "All within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state," certainly applies here, but it runs deeper than that. The fascist conception of the state is all-embracing. Outside of it, no human or spiritual values can exist, much less value. This understood, fascism is totalitarian, and the fascist state, a synthesis and a unit inclusive of all values, interprets, develops, and potentiates the whole life of a people. The people we're dealing with believe that the personal is political, that everything is political and must be treated as such, that the private life is something to be scorned, about something like private ownership, and watch them reject the liberal values of privacy and consent. I'm sure at this point I don't need to quote Marx's rejection of liberal privacy again. I've done it about 5 times now in different videos. You know the drill at this point. Mussolini mentioned synthesis in that quote for a specific reason. Giovanni Gentile, the philosopher of fascism, was a neo-Hegelian, and in the Hegelian tradition, believed that a fascist society would necessarily include a second private life, the socialists' publicness arising as the antithesis to the liberals' thesis of privateness. The fascists viewed the distinction between public and private life as non-existent, imposed by the liberal government, but not actually a real thing.
So, he's getting into a little more heady stuff here, but again, it boils down to, there it is. When you believe that your politics and that your viewpoint is the totality of what society should encompass, then anything that does not fall within that purview is something that it must be destroyed. It cannot stand. It's like, when the state would tell you there is no God but the state. The state is the ultimate power. There is nothing greater than the state. If you believed in a God Almighty that is greater than the state, you are a problem, because you are now appealing to an authority greater than the state, and the state knows its power only extends as far as it can if it is the ultimate power. And that's how these people are. They see that their viewpoint is the ultimate viewpoint, and anything that goes against that, anything that is not in line with that, anything that is not in sync with that, is therefore something that is against what they're after. And that's why they come after you so hard. Again, this is why we've seen, companies and creators attacking the very audience that they should be trying to please to buy their products. But they don't, because they're of this mindset of the utopic ideal of their politics. And as long as that's in play, everything else can be sacrificed, including the private, including personal interaction, including, customer service, including all these things, good art, entertainment. It can all be sacrificed on the altar of the utopic ideal.
This sounds a lot like the progressive everything is political position, like the socialist everything must be turned towards praxis position. What binds these philosophies together is that they are all totalitarian. And I'm using that word properly to mean a political philosophy that concerns itself with the total of everything. It is totalizing. There is nothing that exists that the philosophy considers to be neutral or unaligned or outside of its scope. Fascism and socialism, progressivism and Marxism all view themselves as complete theories, and therefore there is no topic in which they have no position. This is not the liberal point of view. For the liberal, a lot of things are personal. For the liberal, a lot of things are. For the liberal, there is a whole section of life where the state's position should be, do what you want, it's none of my business. A totalitarian philosophy can't tolerate that appeal to privacy. It's a big part of why socialists don't understand consent, because consent is fundamentally a private matter. If everything can be political, the liberal position that allows for a private life is important to being able to actually live as a human being. These same people who demand that everything be political are paradoxically ranting about the violence of speech or the trauma of mental health issues, even as their totalizing worldview causes a lot of that shit, or at least makes it a whole lot worse. These same people who demand that the personal is political are now shocked to learn that politics has a profit motive, enraged at what they view as their personal getting sold out because it's political now, and there's money to be made. These same people who think that all media, all art, all video games, etc. are political, genuinely believe that using political themes or engaging in political drama to tell a story is the same thing as shoehorning in their contemporary politics in order to push a particular stance onto the audience, because the creator thinks that this property they've inherited would make a great soapbox. These same people who talk about the value of the community, who appeal to the community's greater needs and collective wisdom all the time, also paradoxically consider the liberal position of, I can get along with people who have different opinions, to be a personal attack against them, because for them, politics is a zero-sum game. And that brings us back around to the beginning, where no difference can be tolerated, where the socialist struggle is so real that if you side with red, you're evil even if it's blue who pushed you there. My good friend and pod.
And there it is. This was the key of everything he said right there. It's the totality of it all. They cannot abide any viewpoint that is different from what they believe. That's why nothing else matters. Your comic book isn't selling, doesn't matter. Sales across in the industry are tanking, doesn't matter. People don't like you, doesn't matter. You're turning away your audience, doesn't matter. None of that matters, because anyone who is not down with the cause is a problem anyway, and they need to be silenced or removed. This is the infamous Kelly Sue DeConnick interview from 2017 that we all have seen before, and I'm just going to play this one small clip from it, which I think crystallizes exactly what Short Fat Otaku was talking about.
At their core, they're built on the foundation of, the strong, big strong heroes go in and help the little guys, the people who are oppressed. essentially what feminism is about.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
This is always when people are like, "Would you please get your politics out of my comic books?" I'm like, "What comic books are you reading? Where is the apolitical comic book that you're reading?" I'm like, I want to go back to the comic books we were reading in my youth, the 70s, when they were incredibly political and not even.
Or you go back to the Ditko Spider-Man issues, which was Peter Parker was getting bullied and traumatized at school.
Yes, I'm sorry to break this to you, but Captain America is a social justice warrior. I know you mean that as an insult, but there's just no, like, that is the definition of what he is, you know? And if all you want to read are, I don't know, books about, I literally can't even think of what would be.
You're right. If Cap had a Twitter.
And there you go. There you go. Not only does she say, what comic books are you reading that you don't think are apolitical? And then when she goes, well, and if you don't read, you're trying to read, I can't even think of anything, because she is of the mindset everything is political. You see, little soy boy interviewer here even tries to help her out with, oh, the Steve Ditko Spider-Man, you know, when he's being bullied. But being bullied isn't a political thing. Being bullied is a social thing. It's a personal thing. You see, it's something that happened. I mean, I was bullied in high school. I was bullied a lot in school myself. I know what that's like. I never thought it was a political act. It was very much a personal act between me and the person that was doing it to me. That had nothing to do with politics. It had everything to do with interpersonal relationships. But again, see, when you're talking to people who believe everything is political, even the personal, well, then now you see where that ends up. You know, you end up with soy boy cucks like this guy right here, who now says that, oh, yeah, Steve Ditko Spider-Man, where Peter Parker is bullied, is political. No, it's not. You know, she's crying, I can't even think of any non-political books. What are you talking about? It's like, oh, I don't know. How about Spider-Man in the 80s? How about Kraven's Last Hunt? That's not a political story. There's no politics in that book. How about Nightfall in the Batman comics back in the 90s? Those books aren't political. It's Batman fighting all his worst villains and then having to fight the new guy on the block who ends up taking him out and he gets replaced. I mean, that's the story of Nightfall. Where's the politics? There's no politics in there. Again, no politics to a normal person, but to a political ideologue like a Kelly Sue DeMoronic, well, of course those are political, because reasons, everything is political. You can't have, there's no such thing as apolitical. Apolitical is a misnomer. It shouldn't even be a word in the dictionary. This is what we have. This is what we're dealing with. This is who's got their hands on the levers in this industry. You know, this is their mentality. You know, oh, comics in the 70s, they were extremely political? Actually, they weren't. You know, what, Spider-Man teaming up with Nova to fight an alien? That's somehow political? I don't think so. I mean, sure, there were comics that were trying to push certain buttons. You know, the most famous of them all being, you know, of course, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow run by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. But there are two important facts you need to know about that storyline. First of all is that it wasn't successful. You know, I mean, people may look at it today and go, oh, it was trailblazing and blah, 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 and all this stuff. Maybe. But at the time, you know, and Chuck Dixon has talked about this himself in some of his videos on his channel when people brought up issues relating to this, that when he went to DC back in the day and, you know, they asked him and a bunch of guys who said they wanted to work at the company, well, what do you think is our best-selling book? And, you know, he goes, a lot of the guys with me were like saying, oh, yeah, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, that's great stuff. That's great stuff. You know, these college guys, you know, and they would school these kids and say, no, actually, that's like one of our worst selling titles. It sells like the least among all of our stuff. And Chuck says he was blown away when he heard that at the time, the best-selling title was Jonah Hex, a Western comic book. You know, and it just blew him away. They all had no idea that the book didn't sell. It may have been trailblazing in its political narratives, but, you know, and being topical and all that, but it didn't sell. And that's why the run didn't last very long, you know? And that's one facet that someone like a Kelly Sue DeConnick never looks at. So when they were overtly political, it didn't sell. just like today. You know, you would think if you want to talk about, you know, oh, politics in the 70s, well, look at the ones that were political in the 70s. Those books didn't sell very well. And the second thing is even when you look at those books that were more political minded back then, even then they still had an understanding of this is entertainment. This is not a political sermon. This is not meant to be a soapbox for me to sit up here and diatribe on my personal political views and telling you how if you think differently, you're a bigot. That's not what it was for. It was to entertain a mass audience. Pardon me. And that's what's missing today. You know, a Kelly Sue could never understand that because for her, everything is political. You know, she could never. So why didn't Green Lantern and Green Arrow sell better? Well, because people were bigots then? Is that what? Oh, that's got to be what the answer is, because people were bigots. It can't be because, you know, they didn't want that. It can't be because, you know, it can't be because of the politics in it, because everything's political. There is no apolitical comics. What comic books are you reading? You know, this is what we have.